So today, I will discuss about the 4 basic approaches to management, 4 steps to develop good spending and savings habits, 7 tips and tools for spending and saving, and lastly, the 5 personal finance best practices. So for our first discussion, let's talk about the 4 basic approaches to management. First, the group behavior approach. This method is specifically concerned with human actions. People who belong to the same social community have similar emotions and behaviors, and they form a loose organization. Authorities in the hierarchical structure are unable to address the problems they have developed. Second, the operational approach. Management is viewed as an operation dependent on specific management roles in the approach. Management is described as a mechanism that involves the task of arranging, coordinating, staffing, leading, and managing to get things done. It entails the management of both human and material capital. Third, the communication center approach. This approach views management as a center receiving information, processing it, and disseminating it, thus emphasizing the role of communication in management of business. Fourth, the socio-technical systems approach. This approach is based on the belief that personal attitudes and group behavior are influenced by the technical system in which people work. This approach thus lays emphasis on production, office operation. Change in the technical system is called for if the social and technical systems do not go hand in hand. So, that's all for our first discussion. So for our next discussion, it's all about 4 steps to develop good spending and savings habits. Step 1. Know your expenses. To begin, you must first determine your annual expenses. Add up all of your major expenses for the year, including rent, mortgage, phone, clothing, education, utilities, entertainment, transportation, fitness center, and booze. Step 2. Save until it's safe to submit. You should figure out when it's safe to submit number. The more cash you have on hand, the better prepared you would be to survive economic downturns. As a result, putting aside a year's worth of expenses will give you enough cushion to get through almost any recession. Step 3. Resisting upgrades. The majority of people do not have a year's worth of spending set aside. If we have a month, we are feeling pretty fine to save a year's worth of expenses. You must resist every tempting upgrade until it becomes extremely inconvenient to live without it. Prior to my through hike, I learned to question everything I bought. Step 4. Always calculate nominal cost. Make it a routine to measure the nominal cost of recurring bills before you contribute to them. Calculate how much your membership would cost you over the course of a year, or perhaps 5 to 20 years. So, that's all for our second discussion. So, for our third discussion, it's all about 7 tips and tools for spending and saving. First, make a plan. Having a financial figuring out how much of your paycheck is left after the bills are paid. Your plan starts with thinking about what you really want to do. Second, save for the short term. Don't put yourself in a situation where you have to rely on credit for unexpected expenses. One of your top priorities should be building up your emergency savings. Third, invest for the long term. Saving for retirement should be another top priority. When investing long term, you'll want to consider putting your money in something other than a standard savings account that has tax benefits. Fourth, Use credit wisely. Using credit responsibly is an important part of a sound financial plan because your credit score impacts your ability to make almost any big financial purchases. Fifth, choosing a reasonable rent or mortgage payment. Housing costs are generally the most significant part of everyone's budget, as well as a major emotional investment. Sixth, treat yourself. One of the biggest mistakes people make when getting their finances in order is becoming too strict. If we constantly deny ourselves the things we love the most, we will eventually cave into the pressure and make mistakes. Seventh, never stop learning. The world of finance is complicated, but money is a necessary part of life. You don't have to understand everything, but in order to stay financially secure, you need to keep learning about tools and resources you can take advantage of to make what you have worked hard for you. So that's all for our third discussion. So finally, we are in our last discussion, the 5 personal finance best practices. First, devise a budget. A budget is essential to living within your means and saving enough to meet your long-term goals. Second, create an emergency fund. It's important to pay yourself first to ensure money is set aside for unexpected expenses, such as medical bills, if you get laid off, and more. Third, limit debt. It sounds simple enough to keep debt from getting out of hand. Don't spend more than you earn. Of course, most people do have to borrow from time to time, and sometimes going into debt can be advantageous if, for example, it leads to acquiring an asset. Fourth, use credit cards wisely. Credit cards can be major debt traps, but it's unrealistic not to own any in the contemporary world. Fifth and last, monitor your credit score. Credit cards are the main vehicle through which your credit score is built and maintained. So watching credit spending goes hand in hand with monitoring your credit score. So, that's all for my discussion. Thank you for listening and God bless.